So today we're going to go through my vocal chain. Let's just take a quick listen without any effects.
Flexible, so elastic, but don't you dare bend a bitch backwards. Fuck a princess, I'm a king. Bow down and kiss on the ring.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to switch on a glue compressor. The reason we've got this is just to smooth out the volume. We don't want too many high or lows in terms of volume, and we just want it to be sort of cleared out and clean and all sorts of stuff. Make sure you've got oversampling on, otherwise you could get some really weird artifacts in the end. Export, I have just the threshold up to about 20, 21, and the makeup is set up to about 7. We're just going to make sure that that band is going between 5 and 10. Also, we have the soft clip going on, and that's just a good starting point for a vocal. The next thing I like to use is a reverb. So we've got this hybrid reverb here, which has some really good presets, but I'm just going to use some of the standard presets. And all I've done is I've just increased the stereo image a little bit. The dry wet is just down a bit, so we just don't have too much stereo applied. We have the right stereo applied and no phasing. I've reduced the EQ, so we don't have any reverb applied to low frequencies. The other thing that's worth noting is pre-delay. We just want to increase it to about 20. So we don't want it to hit too hard. The feedback, we just want about 10%. So we don't want massive amounts of reverb. We just want enough to affect the vocal. So let's just listen to how it sounds like with the glue compressor and the hybrid reverb.
Flexible, so elastic, but don't you dare.
So already you can hear a bit more width and air in the vocal. Now let's now start looking at delay. Once again, we don't want to go overboard with the delay. The other thing you want is you want to make sure high quality is on again. I've just used repitch, and I've just repitched slightly here. Just a slight dry wet, a very little 10%, 12% feedback. And in terms of delay, I'm not syncing to anything here. I'm actually using time, and I'm using different times. So they sound a bit wider rather than delayed. So let's just take a listen now.
Flexible, so elastic, but don't you dare bend a bitch backwards.
So once again, we can now use a plugin that is not part of Ableton, but it's not a very expensive plugin to buy, and it's quite useful. We just take a look at the little Alter Boy plugin, which is a Soundtoys plugin. We can see that I've pitched everything down by 12, and we have just low drive and low mix. If we just isolate the vocal and just listen to the plugin by itself.
Flexible, so elastic, but don't you dare bend a bitch backwards. Fuck a princess, I'm a king.
So all we're doing is adding kind of this lower level balancing vocal just to give it a bit more meat and width. And finally, I've got yet another glue compressor. Now this glue compressor has a specific job to do, and we are side chaining that to the vocal. So every time there is a vocal being hit or being used, the glue compressor will move here and it will duck. Okay, so let's just take a listen. So you can see here, it's ducking every time the reverb is being used. So the last item on the chain is an EQ. I've used a Ableton preset called Remove Mud. That defaults to stereo mode, and it just cuts off the lowest frequencies, which are basically inaudible to the human ear. You can even cut it all the way up to 100, depending on how far you want to go, but don't push it too much because then it will sound really thin and nasally. That's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to create a group. So I've selected all by pressing Control A, created a group by pressing Control G, and I'm going to just save this preset in my audio effect rack, and I'll call it vocal chain. So next time I can just go back and use this whenever I want. And the other thing I'm going to do is I can actually see this vocal chain in folder. So there's a link below. If you want to use the preset, just download and have fun.